Sleep from 9 to 8 every workday. No fun at night, gotta hit the hay. But on Friday, now you've worked all week long. It's time to get out and say what's up, Hong Kong.
Hi, welcome to What's Up Hong Kong number 28. This is the show where we tell you what's going on in Hong Kong this week and meet some of Hong Kong's most interesting people. It's April 30th. I'm Travis Jones, and I'm honored to have as my guest today Jeff Boda of Hopleaf. He's the head honcho over there of Hopleaf Hong Kong, a distributor of many of the most delicious beers available in Hong Kong, and they're only available here because Hopleaf is in existence today. So we're very glad to have you join the show today, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And well, let's learn more about our guest. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I've been in Hong Kong now for about 7.5 years. Finally got permanent residency. Came here from Chicago. It was total, just a random chance thing. Had a chance to get a job out here in journalism. Looked around and said, you know, I don't want to be 65 wondering what if I would have gone overseas and, you know, what would have happened if I took that chance. I wanted to take that chance, did it, loved it, enjoyed it, have been here ever since. Few things I always missed about home. Gave up a live music scene, gave up baseball season tickets, gave up, you know, a lot of good friends that you still see once a year, but not, you know, you see once a year now, but you used to see them every weekend. And I gave up good beer. And a couple years ago, we decided to try to change it just by, in the classic Hong Kong fashion, of bringing it in yourself. And it's been working out pretty well so far.
Yeah, definitely. We're finally getting some good beers thanks to Hopleaf. And how do you think the music scene has been doing here in Hong Kong?
It's been a little bit up and down. I think a couple years ago they were doing a lot more shows, smaller indie shows, which I tend to prefer for rock and everything. You do get occasional shows here every so often. It is kind of surprising, I think, when you see just a random act that you never thought would show in Hong Kong playing in front of 150 people. That's encouraging. The fact that there is a live rock festival here every year now is, I think, even more encouraging. And I remember when Clock and Flap started in 2007 or 2008 in Cyberport, there were maybe 400 of us who went there, 500.
Right.
And now the fact that you're filling the West Kowloon Cultural District is pretty darn encouraging. And I mean, it's successful in the rest of Asia. Japan has rock festivals all the time. They do pretty well. South Korea is starting to do that now. It was only natural before it came to Hong Kong, so it's I think really good.
All right, excellent. So good to know you have an opinion on beer and music, because
they go together.
There are actually a lot of music events this week we'll discuss later. But so, what do you love about Hong Kong?
Probably just the fact that it's such a large, dynamic city, and everything is almost available here. I grew up outside of a village of 50 people. I grew up in cow country. We occasionally would have to help push the grandparents' dairy cows out of our yard when they'd wander in the morning. So I either love a place that's really rural or pretty urban, and I think for the most part you could describe Hong Kong as pretty urban. But then, you know, you still have hiking trails and everything everywhere where you can get that little remote fix if you want.
Sure.
Pretty much you can get almost 95% of what you're missing from almost any country that you're in. You talk with other people who live in other overseas postings. I've had friends who've lived in Afghanistan and India. That's a place where you can miss some creature comforts and not be able to satisfy a lot of that. Hong Kong being such an international city, you're able to get most of what you miss and be exposed to a lot of other stuff too that you never thought would ever be there before. So it's a pretty good mixture.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's kind of a biodome here where you got just about anything you need.
A biodome where bad air leaks in.
Yes, not much of a biodome as far as the air quality. So tell the listeners all about Hopleaf.
Hopleaf is a group of myself and many other partners. We all got together pretty much because we loved beer. About half of us grew up in Hong Kong, half of us grew up overseas, and we all fell in love with craft beer at one point or the other. And we ended up just kind of meeting each other, and decided, hey, we're going to try to bring some craft beer into this city. We could not get it here. We would bring it back from our travels in the U.S., from Japan, from Singapore, from other countries. we knew that there was a pretty good craft beer scene in Japan. There was a pretty good one in Singapore. There wasn't one in Hong Kong. There's essentially was one restaurant chain that brought in some craft beer. It wasn't always the newest craft beer, so we thought, this is something we miss. We think there's a market demand for this. Let's try to bring it in. And we brought in about 10 pallets worth of beer. It arrived about February or March of 2012. We thought, well, if nothing else, if we can't sell it within a year, we'll just have a big party and have a lot of beer ourselves. And it sold out within about 2 months after the first Beertopia, and we ran out of beer, and it's been getting busier and busier since then.
So we're developing the taste for craft beer in Hong Kong.
I think so, and it's not just expats who are drinking it either. That's kind of the surprise. One of our biggest sellers is a small stall up in Yuen Long called Beer Von Irene. It's 100 square feet. She sells beer.
And I need to find out where that is. I live in Yuen Long.
it's right on one of the side streets, because there's a number of German little beer stores up there. She is a similar one. She was the first person to have Rogue beer from Oregon on draft. She was our first draft beer customer in the city, and it's just 40-year-old local guys sitting on plastic stools drinking craft beer. It's kind of a fun thing. There are places like the Globe that sell a lot of beer that tends to be more of an expat-focused market. But then there's other places where there's nary an expat to be seen who's drinking this.
Okay, excellent. Doing the Lord's work here in Hong Kong.
Somebody's work.
So what's your vision for beer in Hong Kong? What would you like to see?
I mean, in an ideal world, I would like to see everybody drinking beer and being happy and drinking good beer. Realistically, I would like to see craft beer get a little bit of a percentage of the market. I would like to see 20 good beer bars open up in this city. I would like to see a couple brew pubs open in the city eventually, and someone experimenting maybe with a small craft brewery. That vision, I think, is going to take 10 to 15 years to hit the surface. It's possible you're going to see more craft beer bars opening up in this city. This city embraces good food. It embraces good beverage. It's shown a willingness to spend a little bit more than the usual if something is worth it.
Right.
And I think that is a good thing for us. The downside is, because real estate is so expensive in this city, what people always want to do is sell the proven commodity, because they have to hit the high rental fee every month.
Right.
And if you take a risk on something, you may not sell it, and you may not hit your rent for the month. But then again, too, what happens then is you're looking for a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of a market. We would rather see people take a risk and succeed way beyond their wildest dreams and get way more successful because they're trying something that no one else has. That's what I'd like to see the city do. Try new, different things instead of just taking something that someone else has done and try to copy it and get a little sliver of what everyone else is doing.
Right. Okay. So what brands of beer does Hopleaf carry?
Wow, we're just added our newest one from New Zealand. We've got 3 from the U.S., 2 from California, Anderson Valley, and North Coast. They're out in Northern California. Rogue Brewing out of Oregon.
It's really getting quite popular here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, we're kind of surprised how much their flagship is Dead Guy Ale, which is a skeleton sitting on a barrel it's modeled after Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, All Saints Day in Mexico. And we could barely keep that chilled in time for Beertopia a few weeks ago. It was kind of crazy how much of that we sold. That's, I think, one of our most popular beers. Out of Japan, we've got a couple breweries, Baird Brewing and Kagawa Beer, which is a Japanese-Belgian collaboration. We've got Tuatara out of New Zealand, and the one that I think really speaks to the beer geek crowd among all of our partners, Mikkeller out of Denmark. He's been called the mad scientist of European brewing for a pretty good reason. And also with Mikkeller, there's a smaller brewery called 2Øl, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing because my Danish isn't up.
Right.
It's basically a couple former students of Mikkel. Mikkel was a high school teacher who brewed on the side, did really good, started a brewery. 2 of his students who brewed with him on the side started their own little brewery also. or their own label. So we've got those out of Denmark. They do the experimental weird stuff that all of our partners love, that we're slowly introducing this market. This is a brand new market. There's some people ready for weird experimental stuff. Not everybody's quite ready for it yet, but as long as he makes it, we'll keep on buying, because if nothing else, all of our partners will drink it up.
Right. So yeah, it's good our listeners can kind of get an idea for where all the beer's coming to Hong Kong from, and you're pretty much working with people on all the different continents that are known for beer.
Yeah, that's something we specifically did. That's something we went out of the way to do to begin with, is to get beer from around the world. This is a global city. It is used to trade from around the world. It has people from all around the world. We should have beer from around the world. Mm-hmm. There is no one country or region that has monopoly on good beer. Good brewers can pop up anywhere. We want to find where the good brewers are and try to get them over here.
Okay. Any leads on South American or African beers?
Strange. We've had some people ask us about South American beers, but they really is nothing we would want to pursue yet. I haven't really had African beers outside of some of the bigger ones. There was a Namibian beer that people were bringing in for a little bit. That was a pretty good lager. I've heard a lot of good things about some South African beers, but haven't pursued them yet. Potentially one day. We've had people say, well, you should get beers from all, 6 continents.
Right.
Because I doubt Antarctica is going to have a brewing facility anytime soon.
Oh, that's a challenge to all the Antarcticans out there.
That I challenge anybody in a lab down there to send some up here. But we'll see about South America. I mean, part of it, too, is logistics. To get something from around the world shipped here can be a little challenging sometimes. And I think there is a certain limit on how much people will pay for beer after a while. So getting it up from Chile or Brazil might be a little challenging to get it under what people will pay.
Speaking of that, I heard something recently about in China they're paying a top dollar for some expensive version of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Pabst Blue Ribbon,
some 1884 or something. It's
yeah,
called, 1887.
I've read different things where it's like the equivalent of 75 US or something. PBR, that was always one of my big surprises when I came here, that they had PBR in the grocery stores. And one of our partners did some investigation. Both he and I are from Wisconsin, where Pabst originally was brewed. And basically they license it and brew it, I think in Guangdong province, though I could be wrong with that, but they actually brew it within China itself. It looks on the label like it comes from the U.S., but it actually is brewed in China. And someone just thought, if you make it a little bit more expensive, you can get a face beer. So it's a beer that you can serve and give it to a business client or a prospective customer, and it's a very expensive looking beer that will gain you a lot of face. So bully for them.
Very cool. They're kind of pulling a Pizza Hut, upgrading something that's not so hot in the States into something fancy over here.
Exactly.
All right. So which beers that you carry would you recommend for people who haven't tried many of them?
It depends. People always say, like, well, what should I be drinking? And for me, beer is always about emotion.
Right.
There's happy beers, there's sad beers, there's angry beers. There's beers you want to drink to celebrate when you just got engaged. There's beers you want to drink when you just broke up with your girlfriend. There's beers you just want to drink when you want to sit down and read a book for the evening. All different situations. So I don't think there's a universal beer. There's personal favorites of mine among the beers that we carry. I would say Angry Boy Brown Ale by Baird is kind of this beer that fits almost every occasion.
Okay.
It's swirling, it's deep, complex. It's turned into our #1 seller, surprisingly, because I never thought a brown ale would be your top seller among a label.
Yeah, people like a lighter beer generally.
They usually do like a lighter beer, but this it's deep, it's complex, it's unlike any brown ale I've ever had, and we love Baird beer. That is one I think goes in any occasion. Dead Guy is a beer by Rogue that I've fallen in love with again. I first had it in 1995 because I remember the day I was working at a newspaper in Appleton, Wisconsin. I was their front page editor my first year out of college. We were an afternoon newspaper. Deadlines were 10:45 and 11:45. 11 o'clock, the alert comes over, Jerry Garcia dies.
Oh, man.
And so I scrambled, got a little headline for it on the front page, and then went to my local beer bar in Oshkosh, Wisconsin called the Lizard Lounge. And they had a new beer in bottles that night called Dead Guy Ale, which seemed appropriate to have it that night when the lead singer of the Grateful Dead died that day. So it's always had a soft spot in my heart. And since we've started getting it over here again, it's a beer that goes in a lot of occasions. It's sweet, so it helps when it's a little bit cooler. I prefer sweeter beers, but there's still a little bit of a bitterness and maltiness to it. It's drinkable where you can have 4 or 5 and feel good the next day, I think, at least if you're a little bit of a bigger guy like me. Yeah. I can drink a few more than some other people.
Well, that's a sign of quality ingredient.
That's true. Other beers that I'd recommend, find out what you like. Beer comes down to 2 things, sweetness and bitterness. Some people like sweeter beers, some like more bitter beers. If you've never had a beer before, I recommend from us Baird Namazu Lager. Most people are used to lagers. They're used to Qingdaos, to Carlsbergs, to Stella Artois. This is a lager that I think is beautiful. It's deep. It shows you how beautiful a lager can be without overpowering. It has a lot of what you're used to, but takes it to a much more flavorful level. And, I've been drinking beers for years. People who are into beers usually like hoppy beers. Mm-hmm. I would say any beers we get on draft that you can try, if you love pale ales, Brutal IPA, I think, is a beautiful beer by Rogue on draft. Unfortunately, it's named Brutal. It's not that brutal at all. It's actually pretty restrained as far as hoppy IPAs go, but it's absolutely beautiful when I drink. If I go to a bar that has our beers on draft, that's usually the first one I pick out and grab.
Yeah. What's with the popularity of IPAs? I've seen so many of them come out recently.
Why is it popular? Well, I think the hard thing for people to get used to when they drink beer is bitterness.
Right.
Everyone is used to sweetness. Sweetness is something that humanity has craved and gone after since we were in the hunter-gatherer stages. If you found a berry and it's sweet, that gives you sugar, it's energy, it's a good thing to do. Animals don't eat bitterness. Only humans eat bitter things. And it's a hard thing for a lot of people to get at first when they drink beer. But after a while, it's something you develop a taste for.
Yes.
And I think because of that beer fans will start drinking that because it's what makes beer, I think, what it is, especially among craft beer. And different countries bring different things to the brewing process. What America has brought is experimentalism, and for good or bad, a sense of extreme. And America takes the approach, many American brewers take the approach of, if something is good, more of something is better, right. And even more is even more better. So that's why I think you've got so many hoppy IPAs out there, because people just want to see how much they can do of something. Right. And the more bitter, that a lot of people think that's a sign of a good beer necessarily. Sometimes I agree. A lot of times I disagree.
Yeah, I like an even-handed approach with the hops.
Yeah. I mean, everything has a time and a place, and there's times I love really, really bitter beers. But just because you can make a bitter beer, just because you make a beer really bitter, doesn't necessarily mean you should all the time. Yeah. It's a classic rule in life. Just because you can does not mean you should.
Yeah, but too many brewers, I guess, are all about coulda, not shoulda.
Exactly.
All right, excellent. I had another thought. That's funny that you mentioned the Jerry Garcia story, mm-hmm. and that if you ask a lot of people, well, what kind of music do you listen to, then their answer is going to be, well, it depends on what kind of mood I am in.
Yeah.
So there's definitely almost a correlation in the way people feel about their beer and their music. So yeah, if you pair and maybe some reggae music with a nice lighter flavored beer.
Exactly, and I was just, when I was taking the train up here this morning, I lived in Chicago for 8 years. I love a lot of the local bands there. There's a band called Local H, which is just a guy with a guitar and another guy with a drum. It's just straightforward hard rock. That's what I will listen to when I kind of need a little bit of energy going into me. That's also a band that would go great with an IPA. Something okay. Simple, straightforward, a little bit punchy. That's what you're looking for with music and beer sometimes. I would not be listening to Local H if I'm drinking a sweet stout or a brown ale or something like that.
Okay, excellent. It's a cool correlation there. So let me see here. So is Hong Kong on the map for international beer companies? If you are a microbrewery in the U.S. or elsewhere, do you say Hong Kong is it even on the radar?
I think it's getting on the radar among U.S. breweries. Yeah, some people have noticed. I think we're doing some good stuff. Lori Goldberg from Americraft is doing some really good stuff too with American beers. Some other beers have been brought in here kind of under the radar, not officially. There's always rumors Brooklyn is looking to do something in Hong Kong too. I think people are starting to notice here it's not quite yet
Right.
the market that Japan is. Certainly not the market that Australia is. Certainly not the market that Europe is. But I think as more and more breweries go online in the U.S., there's, numbers vary from 17 to 2,200 breweries operating or close to completion now in the U.S. Craft beer has been growing 12, 13% a year. It's going to continue growing in the U.S., but you can only sustain that type of growth, I think, for so long.
Right.
And then they're going to look for overseas markets. And I think Hong Kong is a natural market for that. But it's also educating these breweries that Hong Kong is not China.
Right.
They are totally separate. The markets are separate. The consumers are separate. The laws are separate. The regulations are separate. So I think what people will do is they'll look to Hong Kong as a gateway into China for beer.
Exactly.
And it's not that. Hong Kong is its own individual market with its own tastes, its own preferences, its own rules and regulations. It's easy to bring beer into Hong Kong.
Yeah, but still a great place to set up a base for a kind of an Asia hub.
It is because it's pretty much tax free. You can bring in you can make this kind of your base to go throughout Asia. But I think what anybody needs to, if you're going to bring craft beer into a market, you have to look and see what are your consumers, who are you going after, what are their tastes, because just because something sells in Hong Kong doesn't mean it's going to sell in Shanghai. It doesn't mean it will sell in Hanoi. It doesn't mean it'll sell in Osaka.
Tastes
so a lot of them,
vary
a lot of them will do. A lot of them will vary from city to city.
Okay. So you are a self-described beer evangelist. So I must assume that you are to beer what a sommelier is to wine. Tell us some things about drinking beer that the average person might not know.
When people say what is special about craft beer, I just explain that it's beer that's made with heart and soul. Brewers are chemists, they're artists, they are chefs, they're plumbers, they have to do everything. When you make wine, so much is dependent upon the raw ingredients. Mm-hmm. And you just have to hope you have a good vintage with the grapes that year. Beer is chemistry. If the grains yield a little bit less sugar than the year before, you can change your recipe to make it consistent. You can throw in different flavor. You can throw in different types of hops, get different flavors out of that. You can throw in different type of grain, get a different flavor out of that. You can throw different flavoring agents in and change the flavor of your beer. There is I think a much bigger flavor profile in craft beer than in wine, because you can have all these different ingredients. You can have flavors of blackberry, you can have flavors of mustard if you want. Not that I'm advocating you should be putting mustard in beer, though a few people have done that. You've got grass, you've got chocolate, you've got coffee, you truly have coffee and chocolate flavors in beer. You may have a hint of that in wine, but it's a little bit more difficult to get it in there. So what I explain to them is beer has this huge flavor profile. It can pair with a ton of foods. It can pair with what you're looking for. If you want a sipping beer that is just something that will relax and warm you up on a winter night, I can find that for you. If you just want just something that is going to quench your thirst on a hot summer day, I can find that beer for you too. And what I just do is guide people through when they drink it. Here's what the flavor components are in beer. Here's how it's going to hit. You're going to usually get a little bit of sweetness at first, and then the bitterness is going to come in. Second tasting, you're going to notice this flavor, this flavor, this flavor. And the fun thing about doing something like this, if people never had craft beer before, people want to learn about something like this.
Yeah.
They just don't know how to do it.
Sure.
And most people, when they try craft beer for the first time, they're like, I never knew beer could taste like this. Well, that's probably because 97% of the beer is all the same pale lager. 98% 8% of the styles of beer most people don't know about, and that's where the fun is exposing to them about this 98% of the rest of the beer that they've never heard of before.
Okay. Well, remember, with craft beer, the secret ingredient is love.
It totally is love. And as I said last year in a television interview, and I truly believe this, that if you are a brewmaster or a brewer, there is a much better chance you've played in a punk rock band at some point in your life than pretty much any other profession on earth. I was just at a brewers conference in Washington, D.C., and you could be 3 blocks from the convention center and you would recognize who all the brewers were walking there because they're all seem to be younger, 20, 30 something, all have beards, almost all have beards, all have kind of this not disheveled look, kind of more just like a practical look. They all look like they could be living in Oregon.
Right, Portlandia.
Exactly. If people are used to that in the U.S., that's kind of the look I would describe.
Okay, excellent. Do you guys ever put on beer tasting events, drinking events?
Yeah, we do. We've partnered. What we did last year is we were doing kind of quarterly block parties at a place in Taihang called Stones. We still do that. As we're getting a little bit busier, it's getting a little bit harder for us to put on our own little events. We're plenty busy trying to keep up with an expanding wholesale and retail base.
Yeah.
But we try to do stuff every few months. We'll do occasional private tastings if people are interested. I just talked with someone yesterday who wanted to do something for a corporate event.
Yeah.
So I need to talk with them. But our big thing every year is Beertopia.
Right.
The beer
Which
festival.
we just had last month, right? Or was it earlier this month?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
2 weeks
not
ago.
that long ago.
That was our big event for the year. We ended up selling through about 180 cases of beer and about 7 barrels. I think we did we're about 3 times as busy as the next busiest
and that was just Hopleaf, though. That was
just Hopleaf.
Yeah.
We sold a lot of beer that day, a lot of beer, and that was our big event for the year. We will do occasional other events. If people want to do tastings, they can contact us. We're always about spreading the belief that good beer is available, and we want you to try it.
So how has the reception for craft beers been from the local Chinese population?
It's been pretty good. Everything always naturally has a price point.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a price point that some people are going to accept, and some people are going to say, well, that's too expensive. I'm not going to, I can just get a Blue Girl for $6 or $4 at a 7-Eleven. Why should I pay $25 for a dead guy? First, I think a dead guy is 6 times more flavorful than anything else. For among the local population, it's been pretty surprising for the popularity. There's a beer we have called Prankster out of North Coast, sweet Belgian ale that has been extremely popular among locals. Angry Boy has been extremely popular among locals. What we've seen is sometimes sweeter beers tend to play to the Cantonese palate a little bit more.
Okay.
And I would say at this point, about 60% of our retail orders are from Asian customers. You can't tell whether they're Hong Kong-born Chinese or American-born Chinese or Canadian-born Chinese or Australian-born Chinese. But it's been pretty good so far. We're getting in more. I think our next place where we want to start selling more is on the Kowloon side. And we're doing pretty good at selling on the Hong Kong side. We are in a few places in new territories in Kowloon. I think we can sell a lot more up here. We can get people drinking more. And I think, if anybody ever wants to have fun, go to Yuan Long, go to Beer Von Irene, check out some of the other beer stalls up there, and you will see that Cantonese is a population that likes its beer.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of potential for this in the future.
Well, if anybody wants to go to Beer Von Irene, give me a shout out. I think I'm just like a 5 to 10 minute walk away from that place.
It's about a 5 or 10 minute walk from the train station.
From the NPR station. Okay.
And there's some great food stalls right around it. So it's pretty recommended.
I actually have seen this place now that you mentioned. I'm going to have to stop there and have a beer.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I'm learning lots today. So what can we expect from Hopleaf in the Year of the Snake?
I would say, well, there's a few things we're working on that we'll see if it turns out or not. As far as new breweries, we're always open to adding new breweries, but what we want to do is go deep with what we have.
Okay.
I've been drinking craft beer for 20 years. In the U.S. and in other countries, it's always about what is new, what is new, what is new, what is new. And what I want us to do this year is to go deep with what we have, really establish Dead Guy and Angry Boy and a few other beers as, I think, labels in Hong Kong that people will recognize and will ask for. And I think that's pretty good. There's no point in just constantly adding new breweries and new breweries and new breweries. I would rather take the great beers we have and get them into as many places as possible. I think what you're going to see this year is more bars taking a chance and putting craft beer on draft.
Oh, great.
When we started, it was all bottles, and nobody had it on draft because in this city, the big boys, i.e. Carlsberg, InBev, which is Stella Artois, San Miguel, Leffe, Hoegaarden, own the taps, provide the taps, clean the taps, pay kickbacks to bars to only have their beers. It's called a marketing budget or marketing assistance. Call it what you will. Nobody else can get their beers on draft. We've worked at that to get our beers on draft. There have been a few places now that are craft beer only, and they're doing pretty darn well, I think, with their beer sales. More people are open to having craft beer on draft, and that's what we really want to try to get this year, is more people doing it. Because while we love our bottles, craft beer on draft, like any type of beer on draft, tastes different. It ages a little bit differently on the shipment over because it's all sloshing around together, mixing the goodness together even more. You go through it much more quickly on draft. There's a better nose on it and everything. And I think as more people get this, it's going to be a lot more fun, and we can bring in a lot more varieties on draft. Yeah. We can bring in 2 or 3 barrels of one type just at a time, and people can experiment a lot more with draft beer. I would like to see at least 15 places with craft beer on draft by the end of the year, and I think that's easily doable.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's funny that you kind of touched on it, that people would be surprised just how many beers are owned by 1 or 2 or 3 big corporations.
Yeah, and InBev has done an incredible job in this city in marketing. When I first came here in 2005, you saw Hoegaarden in a few places, not that many, and now it's everywhere. And I think part of it is people view that you get this, as I call it, the barrel of Hoegaarden, this big, clear glass mug that people think they're getting a liter at a time.
Right.
Well, they're not. They're getting a standard pour. It's a lot of it, but it's a sweeter beer. It's a little citrusy. It's refreshing. It's kind of perfect for this market, and I think it hits the flavor profile for a lot of Cantonese customers perfectly. They do a really good job of doing that. They've marketed Stella Artois incredibly well as this high-end beer. It's not a high-end beer. It is Stella Artois has a very popular following in this city.
Yeah, I think the name in the glass, I think.
It is the name in the glass, but I think there's a lot better beers out there. I always recommend, look, if you're going to drink, I'll drink a Harbin on draft any day over Stella Artois. I will drink, Beer Lao or Asahi or any of the Japanese macros on draft over Stella Artois any day. InBev has done a really good job of marketing, of distribution, and of cutting cost.
Right.
That's what they do a really good job at, and they've gotten into everywhere. Carlsberg has done, they're ubiquitous all around the city. They've done a lot of, it's hard to go into a place and not see Stella Artois or Carlsberg in most bars or restaurants. I think the city is ready to go to a different level, to do different things, and I'm just hoping we can help people get to that next level.
Well, the sad thing is about InBev, you say they do a great job at marketing, but a lot of that involves kind of intentionally pushing out the little guy or making sure that they can't enter the space.
It's true.
It's too bad.
I've talked with people, and some of the bigger ones, they will have your draft contract, and hidden in the middle of a 4-page deal is a line that says, if you have us on draft, no one else can be on draft in this bar. That, to me, it's not illegal. It's certainly, I think, you're hiding a fact, and it should be out there a little bit more in the open. And to be honest, for most people, it is hard for them to take a risk on craft beer. It's much easier to get a beer that will cost you $7 a pour that you can then sell for $70. Most bars and restaurants are going to look at it that they can sell it for a much bigger margin. But I think what bars and restaurants need to also realize is that you are doing the same thing that everybody else is. And somebody patronizes a business, doesn't matter what the business is, what type of industry it is, because they like what they're offering. They are offering something special that they can't get anywhere else. And if you are offering the same thing as everybody else, it's a little hard to make yourself stand out.
Sure.
And that's what I think more people are going to start realizing with craft beer is it's different from what everybody else is offering. Everything can change all the time. You can change your draft list all the time, which engages the consumer. It gets them coming in. They never know what's going to be on draft. They just know it's going to be good. And I think that's how you can make yourself stand out in this city where so much can be the same sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, so anybody listening should actually, I would recommend the documentary Beer Wars if you haven't watched it. It's very informative.
It's very good, and it looks at a few people. It looks at Dogfish Brewery out of Delaware, which is, I always refer to our beer Mikkeller as the Dogfish of Europe. And if anybody is familiar with American beers, Dogfish does experimental, strange beers all the time. We'll just spend outrageous amounts of money on brewing equipment to try something new because they believe it'll be a really good beer. And it looks at Sam, the owner, and him struggling just with the decision of how much to expand, because a lot of these breweries were just guys who started with a couple barrel systems in their garage, and they started growing. And for you to expand as a brewery, you can't just double your size. You have to quintuple your size, because if you just double, then all of a sudden within a year you're going to have to double again and double again and double again. You have to go at a scale that's much bigger. And he's struggling. Well, how much of a loan do you take out? Are you going to be able to afford this?
Yeah.
Because these are just guys who are brewing in their backyard, and then they started a business and became successful. And for you to take a risk of taking a loan out for a few $1 million, that freaks a lot of people out, rightfully so.
It makes it very real.
It's very real, and it looks at him, and he did, and it paid off successfully for him. And it looks at another person. She was the number 2, basically, at the Sam Adams Corporation.
Right.
And she struck out on her own to start
with
what was
caffeinated beer.
And she realized then how hard it was to sell beer in the U.S., which is broken up into what we call the 3-tier system. Right. You can make beer, you can distribute beer, or you can sell beer, either at the retail level with a store or a bar. You can't do all 3. And she found out if she made beer, how hard it was to break into that, to get distributors to carry it, because they only will carry so many lines. And even though they know her from her previous business, they're not sure if it's worth taking the risk. And it's a really interesting documentary, even if you don't like beer, if just see how business goes down, and just the human tale behind everything. It's a pretty interesting movie.
That lady with the caffeinated beer was definitely the saddest and most eye-opening portion, just to see this is a capitalist society in the United States. We're supposed to be able to enter the market freely, but that really isn't the reality.
It isn't the reality. I mean, she took a risk, and she had a lot of skills, and the business just didn't go the way she thought it would initially. I don't necessarily want to ruin how it turns out in the end for anything like that. But I think it's a lesson that just because you do something once, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy to do something again.
Right. Okay, excellent. So thank you so much for answering all my beer-related questions.
Thank
I think
you.
it was very educational. Do you have any other hobbies you like to do here in Hong Kong?
I used to bike a little bit more. Unfortunately, it's a little bit busy for me right now to get out and do that.
Yeah, I find that people that are very heavily involved in business ownership have a hard time finding side projects.
It's a little bit. I mean, I am also a journalist by trade, so, I'm pretty much an avid reader.
Okay.
And really, after 7 years here, you kind of go out and do things. And, I've done a lot of the traveling and trying to hit different corners of Hong Kong. At this point, after 7 years, it's just meeting up with the friends that you've developed over the years, heading out to them, having dinner with them, having, just a quiet evening, traveling up and seeing your friends in Sai Kung or something like that. If you can get all together on a junk, to me, that's kind of a perfect weekend, and just chilling out. The business keeps me very busy. I wish I could have a few more side gigs. But you do get to meet a lot of fun people in this business, so that, I think, is more than made up for any time that I've lost right there.
Right. Okay. And any other groups in Hong Kong or elsewhere you want to give a shout-out to while you're on here?
I would say support local music whenever you can. Support people who are trying to make the art scene here better. One thing that I miss about Chicago was a thriving art scene there. And art was something that wasn't necessarily something you invest in or show off. It's you get to know the local artists, you get to get something that speaks to you. Go out here, go to your local art walks, go to the festivals they have, get to know the creative community here. Embrace people who are trying to make the food scene here better. If you get a chance to go to some farmers markets, do that. There's people growing vegetables here locally, growing fruit here locally, making local honey. Buy that, do that. I know it's strange for someone who's bringing beer from around the world to say something like this, but support your local farmers if at all possible. That's,
avoid McDonald's.
Yeah.
Something fresh.
Yeah, and I think what you learn is you're going to be surprised that you can find vegetables that are being grown locally. Local honey from Yuen Long is some of the best stuff I've ever had here. Just search around in the city, realize, there is a local scene here for music. There is a local scene here for food. There is a local scene here for everything. Hopefully at some point there will be local craft breweries popping up and everything too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as far as other shout-outs, just be on the lookout. If you like beer, go on our website, get on our mailing list. We will try to do occasional events and do stuff. We're working with the Globe to do a tap takeover.
That's right.
In conjunction with Boxing Cat Brewery in Shanghai.
On May 15th.
May 15th, it's a Wednesday. We're going to have, we'll be there. Hopleaf Partners will be there. Michael Jordan, the brewmaster at Boxing Cat, not the basketball player, but
right.
Almost as good. When it comes to brewing, he's as good as Michael Jordan.
He makes better beer than Michael Jordan.
Exactly,
the basketball
exactly.
player.
And Lee, the owner of Boxing Cat, will be down. They'll be coming back from Denmark for the Mikkeller Beer Festival there, and they'll be coming back. They'll be pouring beers on draft. Coming down, it's beers that you will never get to have on draft here again in the short term.
Right.
Hopefully, they might be down here long term. But, try different things. If you go into a bar and see a beer that you've never had before, try it. The whole joy of life when it comes to food and beverage is trying something new,
Variety.
Experimenting, and kind of challenging really maybe what you thought you knew, and also challenging just what you do all the time. There's nothing bad with going back to your old favorites, but try something new every once in a while. It's good to be surprised.
Definitely. So everyone mark your calendars. May 15th at the Globe in Soho. We have the Hopleaf Tap Takeover. Many delicious beers to sample there. Well, not sample, but just down the whole thing.
Yeah, with the Boxing Cat Tap Takeover. Come on down, have fun. You'll meet good people. They might be giving away swag. We're trying to figure that out right now. So
that'd be nice.
Exactly.
So get there early so they don't run out of swag.
Exactly, exactly.
All right. Well, let's get to know you a little bit better through a fun little game we like to call What's Up or Down Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Just 10 quick rapid-fire items. You just say, whenever I say it, you say up if you like it or down if you're not so into it.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, wine coolers.
Down.
Instagram.
Partially up.
Okay, we'll take that as an up. Shenzhen.
Up.
Okay.
Strangely enough.
Tabloids.
Up. I'm a journalist.
Okay. Shakespeare.
Well, I got to say up because we have a Shakespeare stout by Rogue, so it's got to be up for us.
Good shout out for the Shakespeare stout.
Yeah.
Rain.
Down.
We've been getting a lot of that recently.
Yeah.
Reptiles.
Up also because we just added a brewery called Tuatara, which is a reptile from New Zealand.
Oh, cool. Camping.
For my friends, it's up. I like my bed, so personally it's down for me.
Okay. Electronic music.
Up.
Up, okay. Bow ties.
Ooh, that's got to be an up.
Okay.
I don't think I could rock a bow tie, but if you can do it, all the more power to you.
I'd like to see it. It would be interesting.
Yeah.
What do you do in Shenzhen when you go there frequently?
I've only been there once or twice. I am a journalist full-time for an international newspaper.
Okay.
And our newspaper's done a lot of reporting on the leaders in China, which means it's not always easy for me to get a visa to go across the border.
Ooh, yeah.
So I've not been up there as much as many of my compatriots.
Is there much craft beer in Shenzhen?
There are a few distributors up there, and we had a homebrew competition at the Globe a few months ago, and the best beverage we had there was not a beer, it was a cider made by a guy in Shenzhen.
Wow.
It was stunningly beautiful cider.
Strange.
So there is a scene there.
Very cool. And then, of course, wine coolers, not up your alley at all.
Not up my alley. I think I had them when I was 16, back in the Bartles and James when they were popular.
Maybe a Zima.
Yeah, we were actually in a test market for Zima while I was in college.
Oh, wow.
not my thing. You know, if you can just have a gin and tonic or a bourbon and water. I think that's a much better thing to have.
Yeah, definitely. Gin and soda, save on the calories.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, great. Thank you for doing that. Now, let's get into some old news, because when you make a podcast, all the news is old. Let me see here. This week, the LegCo shot down a $100 million payout to China to provide assistance for victims of the Sichuan earthquake. Although the Finance Committee will meet again next week to try to clear the way, or I guess this week by the time this comes out, for an aid payment. The biggest concern of the LegCo was stated as being corruption preventing the funds from reaching the appropriate people. It's pretty sad that Hong Kong is supposed to be part of China, yet the LegCo can't even justify sending any money into the greedily corrupt hands of mainland officials in a time of crisis. I think people should probably just use private charities if they want to get some money for Sichuan aid. Story number 2. Unlike the Occupy Hong Kong hippies that were booted out from beneath the HSBC building last year, a high court judge declined an injunction that would have removed striking dock workers who are camping out by the Chung Kong Center. The judge said the matter was not urgent and not purely a commercial matter, and cited the freedom of expression as a factor in his ruling. Certainly a nice win for the dock workers in their attempts to call attention to their cause. Not a win for people who want to import beer on big boats from big boats.
Though we did get incredibly lucky. We had a shipment that was delayed getting out of the U.S. It arrived the Thursday, 2 days before Beertopia. Somehow it got through and was delivered to our warehouse on Friday. We're actually prepared that we would donate cases of beer to the cause to help it get through.
Oh, wow.
It got through on its own, but we know what it's like to work on the docks and everything like
Sure.
that. It's not an easy job. It's definitely not an easy job, so, more power to them.
Definitely. Okay, story number 3. Apparently, Hong Kong parents are raising a generation of antisocial, narcissistic, overly aggressive brats. A study carried out by City University has found that Hong Kong kids are at risk of developing disorders that could turn them into violent offenders. Testing 9,400 kids between the ages of 6 and 13, the results find higher levels of narcissism and aggression in the average Hong Kong child are higher than in the U.S. and the U.K., and more antisocial tendencies in Hong Kong children than in criminal children in the U.S. and Canada. What's up with these kids? As a man without children, who can I blame?
I think what you could blame is what some people want to do. If you can look at if they're playing too much Grand Theft Auto or something like that, that could potentially be something right there if you'd want to blame it that way. I've been playing video games for about 30 years.
Yeah.
So I think that I've turned out a little socially adapted, so I'm not going to subscribe to that theory myself.
Yeah, as a gamer, I do not support any claims that video games cause violence, but yeah, people love to do that. Just want to do a quick event review from something I did in the past week that I, just kind of say how it went. The movie Oblivion. Good for sci-fi fans, but I can see where people who aren't into sci-fi, or maybe Tom Cruise, would not enjoy it, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. I would give it, let's say, 8 out of 10 sups. That's my unit of measurement, the SUP. If you want a good sci-fi flick, go check it out. Looking forward to Iron Man, though. Let's break into 10 events. Well, first we have an art event, the Mobile M Plus Inflation at West Kowloon Cultural District, right near where we are right now, and Elements. 6 giant inflatable sculptures, including the iconic gargantuan pile of dog poo, through June 9th at noon each day. It's free to attend.
This is the one with the giant rubber ducky, right?
No, that's a separate thing.
That's a
actually.
separate one.
I think it's completely unrelated, actually. But it's funny that they would both be here at the same time.
There's kind of a weird overlap with it. If it's inflatable, it's inflatable. It's a sculpture. What more do you want?
Right. I think I'm going to go check it out as soon as we're done here, actually, so I can review it next week. Another art event, first day of the giant rubber duck at Harbor City in TST. It's 16.5 meters high. And that's starts Wednesday, May 1st, and goes through May 26th, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So there's your giant rubber duck.
How can you not love a giant rubber ducky?
Oh, as much as the people in Hong Kong love to take pictures, the line you might not even be able to get close enough to this rubber duck to take a picture without it looking like a normal-sized rubber duck. Musical event, As I Lay Dying at Hidden Agenda in Kwun Tong, Thursday, May 2nd, 8:30 p.m., $420 advance, $480 at the door. So that's some hard rock right there.
Go see music.
All right. Yeah, Hidden Agenda is a good venue, actually.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything there before?
A few shows. I've seen shows all over the city. The city kind of surprises with some of its sound quality sometimes. I think the small venues here actually are pretty good compared to small venues in other cities that I've been in. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do more of the music scene here.
Yeah.
So let me see. We have a business event, using social media to sell into mainland China at the Hive in Wan Chai. Learn how to sell in China without a Chinese bank account, open a Weibo account, and create a viral social media campaign on Chinese social media. Thursday, May 2nd, 7 p.m., $264 to attend. So how's your social media in China right now with Hopleaf?
I could do a little bit. We are not doing a whole lot in China.
Okay.
We've had people ask us about China, and we're like, well, there's Hong Kong, and we're happy being here, so we'll keep it here.
Well, here's a good event for people who are handling your social media to check
exactly.
out.
And if nobody's ever been to the Hive, check it out. It's just this great little space, a lot of collaborative energy there. So.
Okay. Musical event, Paul Oakenfold at the W Hong Kong Hotel, Friday, May 3rd, 8 p.m., $580 to $688. So that's pretty well known. I believe he's electronic music. Should be a pretty good one. Sports event, Scottish Premier League, Hearts versus St. Mirren at Tynecastle Stadium in Chung Uk, Saturday, May 4th, 3 p.m. So all you Scots that are... I know the Scottish Premier League is not very well respected amongst the UK people that I've mentioned it to.
Yeah, they've had a few problems with some of their teams over the years, but if you like it, go up and watch it.
If you're a hooligan, I know you want to be there. Let's see here. Party events. Multiple meetup groups are having a beach party at South Bay Beach in Repulse Bay on Saturday, May 4th from 11:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's $200 to go. They're going to have Mexican food, hip-hop and electro music, and various contests with prizes. Sounds like a nice day out as long as it doesn't rain.
Yes, pray for the rain to stay away. And it's Mexican food. Who doesn't like that? Yes,
there's not enough good Mexican food around here. Hopefully they'll do it right. Musical event Kraftwerk at Star Hall, Kai Tech in Kowloon Bay. The German Electro Pioneers will be performing a concert in 3D with a giant 3D screen. Saturday, May 4th, 8 p.m., $580 to $780, includes the 3D glasses. So.
It's kind of your souvenir to remember your night out with a band that's been around for, almost 35 years now?
Long time. They're definitely the pioneers of electro, but it's good to see they're still out there kicking. They're showing their age, though, from the pictures that I've seen. Yeah. Sports event, the Bon Aqua MHW Action Spring Series 2013. This is a running event, a 12-kilometer race. It starts at Discovery Bay, Sunday, May 5th, 9 a.m. So that's for you runners out there.
Run away from Discovery Bay, you could say.
Musical event, last but certainly not least, Blur will be coming to Hong Kong at the Asia World Expo in Tung Chung on Monday, May 6th, 8 p.m., $480 to $880. I've noticed that whenever big-name musical acts do actually come to Hong Kong, it's always like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like the worst days of the week because they got better,
I'm probably
cities
guessing
to
they're
go
playing
to.
in Tokyo or something like that
on
the
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's at least they're here, so that's
true.
good. I know a lot of Blur fans out there. I'm a huge Gorillaz fan. I kind of wish it was Gorillaz instead of Blur, but should be a good show either way. So there's your 10 events. Definitely some cool stuff happening in the city this week. And that'll lead us into our last game before we finish up here. 5Q, where we just ask you 5 questions, and I better hide the answers from you here because we're keeping track of the score. Question number 1. This drink is created when combining a dark beer like Guinness and another lighter colored beer in the same glass.
The black and tan?
Correct, black and tan, which is it's an interesting drink to me because the Guinness always goes on the bottom because it's actually, or no, it goes on the top. You would think it's heavier, but it's actually lighter than most of the other beers.
It's the fallacy that dark beer is higher in alcohol. It just means it's made with dark grains.
Okay, so yeah, it's a pretty good drink to have actually if you get a chance to try it out. It's neat to see it prepared as well. Question number 2, movie. 2002. I'm just going to give you the synopsis. You tell me which movie it is. A woman who killed her husband and sister after finding them in bed together, and another woman that killed her boyfriend when she discovered he wasn't going to make her a star, find themselves on death row together and fight for the fame that will keep them from the gallows. Starring Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh, I have no idea.
It's based on a Broadway play.
Not big on the Broadway plays.
Singing and dancing.
I never would have guessed that one.
Okay. Well, Chicago.
Yes.
Chicago.
Yes.
And Jeff, you've spent many years in the windy city of
I did.
Chicago. Do you prefer Windy City or Second City? I know there's multiple names for Chicago.
I actually like Second City because I'm an improv fan also.
Oh, okay,
So,
yeah. And Second City is some of the coolest improv in the United States, or probably the world.
Yes.
Have you seen any of the shows they do here, People's Liberation Improv and so forth here in Hong Kong?
I have not yet.
Check it out at
Yeah.
Takeout Comedy. I always
Yeah.
give them a shout out. I'm a big comedy fan myself. Question number 3. So we're 1 for 1. Doing okay. The Nordic game Cube, in which wooden batons are tossed at wooden blocks, has its U.S. national championships each year in this city.
It's Norwegian, so I'm guessing Minneapolis?
Oh, no, not Minneapolis. It's a small town, not a huge city. Well, I don't know. I haven't been there, but it's not a big name city.
Am I close geographically?
Yeah, you're pretty close geographically. Not the same.
Fargo?
Not the same state though.
Fargo.
Fargo. No, not Fargo.
Ooh.
Oh, I forgot to qualify. Some of these questions may or may not have something to do with you yourself, Jeff Boda.
Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Correct, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where Jeff attended the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. And so, yeah, apparently there are only 2 big national championships, and the one is held in Norway, and the other one is held in Eau Claire, Wisconsin for the game Cube.
I can honestly say I never saw anybody playing that in like 4 years there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, now you know.
Yes.
But good, you're 2 out of 3 now. Question number 4. You were a newspaper editor for many years, so you know what words to use in certain situations. I'm going. This really doesn't have anything to do with that, but I'm going to say 3 words, and you guess the correct spelling. So these are words with multiple ways of spelling them. Okay. 2 out of 3 wins the point.
Yeah.
There.
Which there?
Exactly.
Their.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is actually the one I had. Here.
Well, considering this is a podcast, this should be HEAR.
Actually, I went with HERE. Okay, so we got one more. 2.
I'm going to overthink on this one, and I'm going to go with TOO.
Correct. I did actually. I could show you. You got. They each have 3 different spellings, so I think I think statistically you were unlikely to get that right, but you did it. Way to go.
This makes up for the Chicago fail.
You are a Milwaukee Brewers fan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which best describes the fact that only Miller beer products are offered at Milwaukee Brewers baseball games? Awesome, logical, or a goddamn travesty?
Logical.
Logical? Okay.
I'm not saying it's a travesty, though. I will say I was just there for a game on a visit home a few weeks ago. There are a few little stalls where you can get New Glarus and a few other beers there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, well, then I'll give you the point since that has changed since I saw a game there. But, yeah, logical. I was going to say it's a travesty. But,
it's Miller's the beer we all grew up and drank. And in Eau Claire, there's a small local brewery called Leinenkugels.
Yeah, I had
in
some
Chippewa Falls,
Leinenkugels
right next door. It used to be a great little local brewery. And they still will do a few things good here and there, but no longer are they known for making their springtime bock that we would load up cases of and care for it all year long to carry us through.
A good variety of beers, though, the Leinenkugels makes.
Yes.
Any
yes.
chance of carrying any Leinenkugels here?
That may be a little bit tougher.
All
So
right.
we would prefer to stay with some more people on the good brewers on the West Coast, though we're
Sure.
always open to people in the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest, have
Right.
a fondness
Good
in my
connection.
heart. If we can get New Glarus, my favorite brewer from my home state of Wisconsin, we would love to do it. As I was told that there is no chance of that ever happening because they don't even sell outside of Wisconsin.
Right. I've
Let
run into
alone
those
internationally,
beers. Right.
so.
For the longest time, I'm from the East Coast, and
Mhm.
Yingling was a beer that was made in Pennsylvania. That
Yes.
is quite famous on the East Coast.
Yes.
And for the longest time, you couldn't get it in West Virginia, where I went to school. So
Hey.
you'd have to go across state lines to go pick up some Yingling.
It was the same thing when I lived in Chicago. When I would go home to visit, people would request I bring back some New Glarus.
Right. So I think we're talking about the plot of Smokey and the Bandit here.
Exactly, yes.
Getting that Coors Light across state lines.
Exactly.
Nice. All right. Well, that'll do it. 4 out of 5 on the questions. Very good.
It's a pretty good percentage, especially considering one was pure luck.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So let's get into the plugs here. Just everyone should visit www.hopleaf.hk to buy some delicious craft brews from around the world. They are now selling beer at a discount if you order by the case, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. And join the Beer of the Month Club while you're there. Makes an excellent Mother or Father's Day gift.
Or for corporate clients or anything like that. And
You
what
want
I
to
love
grease the
about
wheels a little bit?
you can do that, and what I love, we get a lot of special beers that only go into that. So we switch them every month. You'll never get bored. Trust, as I always say when you go to a bar, trust your bartender if you don't know what to drink, and if you're buying from a craft importer, trust the people who bring the beer in. They know good stuff.
Definitely. Follow Hopleaf on Twitter at HopleafHK and find them on Facebook, facebook.com/HopleafHK. Yeah, let's get them up to like 1,000 likes on Facebook.
We would love that.
I think that'll happen soon enough. Look out for Hopleaf's Tap Takeover on May 15th at the Globe in Soho with what was the name of it?
Boxing Cat Brewery
Boxing Cat.
out of Shanghai. There's some really great people. Go visit Boxing Cat if you spend a weekend up in Shanghai. They've got some really great stuff going on up there.
All right, Boxing Cat. I won't forget that one again. Especially, I'm gonna make it a point to attend this and try their beer for sure.
Yes, you will want to try the Donkey Punch Porter.
Donkey Punch Porter. Were they at Beertopia?
They were at Beertopia.
Okay, I saw them. I didn't have a
Yeah.
chance to get to them.
Yeah, there were a lot of beers available.
I think they were right next to that awesome pizza beer tent.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
When I walked by and I saw beer with Parmesan on the top, I was like, something's wrong.
Yeah, which is strange because they actually brew that at Sprecher Brewing in my home state of Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, go to Beertopia every year. And can we expect that around the start of springtime every year?
I would think so. I think it got so busy. I mean, last year there were 1,700 people. This year they had over 6,000. They had to turn people away. They got so busy.
Could we see multiple days next year?
I would like that. Jonathan So, the organizer, I know it's gotten so popular. It would not surprise me to see it expanded. Now, what it would be, he would need to determine. But I think we've proven that there is a demand for great beer in the city.
Definitely.
People go out and drink it. I think you could easily justify having it for more than one day.
Yeah, I think
once
a weekend
year
would be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Or even do one day twice a year. Do
That would be.
semi-annual.
We would love to do that. Multiple days. We'd love to see that too.
Hey, did you have a chance to try out that maple beer bacon that they did in the game tent? It was.
I did not. I was too busy running back and forth. But funny you say that because Rogue makes a bacon maple ale that we're bringing in on our next shipment that should be here in a few weeks.
Right, that's the Voodoo
Voodoo
Donuts.
Donut bacon maple ale. It definitely is not a session beer. I had it when I was up at the Rogue with the Rogue people last fall. It's much better than you'd go in and thinking, oh, it's actually pretty good. It's a good beer underneath. It's interesting. It's definitely not something you can have 5 of in an evening. But
Sure.
if you want to grab one and try with your friends, it's certainly worth trying.
Okay, have a couple and switch over to some Dead Guy or something.
Exactly.
Excellent. So yeah, maple bacon beer sounds pretty cool. I would like to try it. And I think did I miss anything as far as
I think that's all. If you have any questions, always send us an email. We understand there's all these beers. It kind of might be overwhelming, especially if you've never tried it before. We're here to answer questions. We're here to guide people through it. We just want people to be drinking better beer, eating better food, just experiment in life. Try something new. You'll be surprised a lot of times, and usually for the better.
Okay. And as far as my show here, just like to give a shout out to everyone. Go to MaidenNYJazz.com to vote for Ella Allegre for Best Solo Vocalist, a friend of the show. She's a local jazz singer, and she's trying to win this international competition. So go vote if you haven't already. Subscribe to our show on iTunes and put us in your favorite folder on Stitcher. Leave ratings and reviews for us. Please check out our other podcasts on Speak HK right now, Dear HK, and we have a brand new Cantonese language podcast, our first, so it's called Hao Sui Tong. So go check it out if you're able to understand Cantonese, or you could just download it if you can. That'd be nice too. Contact me at TraviJ@speakhk.com. Tweet me at SpeakHK on Twitter. Facebook.com/speak.hk. Like us there. And we also I've started a new group called the Hong Kong Podcast Fans Facebook group. So if you're just into podcasting and you want to share what you like and get some ideas for other podcasts to listen to, go join that, like it. And that's pretty much it. So I think you've already given us some good words to leave on. Anything else you wanted to say to the people before we sign off?
Not a whole lot. Just get out, have fun, and let's hope the rainy season holds off for a few more weeks.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. And for Jeff Boda, this is Travis Jones signing off. That's what's up.